If not, we'll end up having to record and stuff like that. So. Let's get that down there. All right, guys, make sure to use hashtag CoolMiniOrNotExpo2019 for your questions, along with the hashtag Bloodborne BG, right? Board game. Yep, there we go. Bloodborne Board Game. And get your questions answered. We have Michael and Eric here. TBG, the board game. All right. And then what else do we have? We also have our awesome friends over in the UK joining us today as well. And they're watching from the UK Games Expo. That's hashtag UKGE. And I believe they have a 2019 on theirs as well. So, oh, wow. And we have props and everything that people have brought. So, this is going to be so much fun for you guys. That's crowd control for the props. All right. I think everybody is ready, so we will see you guys back here in just a minute. Thanks so much for waiting with us here.
So we'll just keep this.
Hello, and welcome to CMON Expo again. Come on, Expo. Sorry about that, guys. We are here to talk about Bloodborne the Board Game, and we are joined by our designers Michael Shinall and Eric M. Lang. We are very excited to have them both here. They'll be answering questions, some from me, some from you guys. Please, please, please be sure to use our Bloodborne TBG hashtag, so that way we can get all of your questions in, make sure they're all answered. That's also how we are running the contests for prizes for participation. So while we will be taking some from the audience, you're more likely to win a prize and other cool things if you do submit your questions. Also, thank you to all the wonderful, lovely people in the UK who are joining us on this live stream as well. We're looking at your questions. We want to make sure we get to those too. So please get those in as soon as you can. All right, just to kind of start us off, I'm actually going to start this one because this game has such a large audience with a little bit of an introduction. Do you mind introducing yourself just a little bit and what your role was on the game? And then Eric, you're next.
Sure. I am Michael Shinall, one of the co-designers here, along with Eric M. Lang here, who is sorting cards. And together we have brought the Bloodborne tabletop board game here to the masses.
I'm Eric Lang. I am also co-designer and the design director at CMON. With Michael, we co-designed this game.
Wonderful, wonderful. And just so everyone's aware, all the parts, pieces, aspects that we are showing off today are prototype in some form or another, so they are not final pieces.
Yep, everything potential subject to change before final release and licensor approval.
Yep, all the stuff we're supposed to stay, we just said it.
That's
right?
very well rehearsed.
All right, so let's jump in a little bit. So let's kind of start bigger picture. We had the Bloodborne card game that we've that's done very well for us, and then now we just launched or finished the Kickstarter for Bloodborne the board game. What's the big difference, right? Like what is the board game?
Oh, it's almost it's almost easier to say what are the similarities. They both say Bloodborne on the box. That's basically
That's a much
they
shorter
both
list.
contain blood echoes. I think that's really the only similarity. Like the blood they are two very, very different games. They are meant to be both enjoyable on very different levels. Where the card game was it's a very simple game that's made for a broader audience, and of course without a lot of miniatures. This is the big box epic realization of Bloodborne for those who want a more crunchy, epic dungeon crawl experience that's a little bit more narratively similar to the video game.
Fair Fair enough. Fair enough. And what is the experience like as a player is going through the board game? What is the
Painful.
Only through pain and strife do we grow as people, and that's the exact thing we want to incorporate here. So, just like the video game, it is brutally hard, but fair. That's one of the important aspects about Bloodborne, is that we've removed as much luck element as we can. So any success or failure dictated by you playing through the game is based on your own actions. You know, you can't go, man, some random luck element just completely made me die there, because there's no dice at all. So we want all your choices to matter, and you to basically be able to retrace your steps back to the moment where things started snowballing downhill for you. Go, okay, if I had done this differently, then I might have, the outcome would have been better. I might have won, to really recreate that feeling of the video game. Because while it is brutally difficult, it is fair, and that's the important aspect to capture.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, how many of you guys have played Bloodborne the video game? The rest of you play it. It's really cool. One of the we talk a lot about like the greater experience, what we were trying to capture. One of the funny phrases that we passed around amongst each other is like, we need to make players use their own deaths as part of an experiment, right? Like, death is a resource for you in this game. Like, you're going to die. There's almost zero chance. I've never done it. I've never done a death-free run, but you're just going to die, and it's a matter of like, how many times are you going to die, and how are you going to die efficiently?
What did you learn from it this time?
What did you learn from this time? I mean, when you play the video game, right, a lot of the ways that you learn how to get better is by dying and then figuring out the pattern of the different monsters that, or especially bosses that you're fighting. It's a very similar experience in this, just using a completely new set of mechanics.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what is it like working on the Bloodborne license in general? Right? Is this something you were familiar with before working on the game? Is it something that you ran into as you were?
So I started familiar with it because I worked on I designed the card game 3 years ago. Michael learned the game to work on this project, and now he knows the game way better than I do. Like, that's the way Michael is. Like, he dove in. How many times have you played to the end?
I lost count, but seeing as how it's one of the only console games I own, because I'm a PC gamer,
right?
It was the only thing I owned for PS4, and I played through it at least once of every weapon, which there are at least 13 plus of those.
That's right, yep.
But the thing is that aside from just from a work perspective of making sure to know everything, it was actually one of my most enjoyable game experiences as well, so I actually liked playing through it, time and time again, just to familiarize with all the different elements of it.
That's right. Michael has a lot more patience than I do too. I'm really bad at these games. Oh my god. I still love it. I love the storytelling. That was such a unique way of telling stories through hints and emergence. And there's not a lot, like, the story is not the main thread of the gameplay, right? You could play it and not know much about the story at all. You just get these cool little hints of what's going on in the background.
There's just there's as much narrative as you choose to put into the game.
Yeah, exactly right. So in this one, we chose to bring that to the forefront and expand a little bit on the snippets that you might be reading in the game.
And it seemed like we had a pretty good mix of folks who are familiar with the video game in here, and some that haven't played it before. Could you just tell us a little bit about the lore, just to kind of, since you're touching on it?
So for those
not too many spoilers.
Oh, definitely no spoilers, just the generals. So for those who've never played Bloodborne, the game takes place in the city of Yharnam, and you're playing the role of hunters. And basically, for spoiler story-based reasons, monsters infest the streets and a plague is rampaging through the city, and you are sent out to fix the problem. Technically, heroes is not the word I would use.
I mean, hunters is about right.
Yeah, you're there to fix the problem. Who caused the problem? If it's, the guys you're working with or what, that's not really relevant. You're just fixing the issues.
But
and
by any means necessary.
And one important distinction here is for those who have played the game, this is not a straight retelling of just the video game. So, if you've played through there, this is not the same story. We have 4 campaigns in just the core box alone. They're each telling kind of side stories in the same setting and little tweaks and twists of events that you may have seen in the video game. So if you're coming in here with expectations like, oh, I know how this is going to play out because I played this in the video game, you might get a curveball here, and all of a sudden things are resolving differently.
That's right. That's right. That was actually one of the most fun parts of this game, right? To be able to in a franchise so well known, so well loved, to be able to have surprises even for those players. And if you can play this game, by the way, even if you have not played Bloodborne, if you have not played Bloodborne, this is just, I would call it a really, really hard skill-based dungeon crawl that will terrify you, but you will feel unbelievably awesome if you win, if you somehow kind of manage to win.
When you finally do persevere, if you do, you're going to have that moment of, yes, I did it. But those are going to be rare, but those should be savored when they happen.
That's right.
They feel really good.
They feel really good. Well, and you feel like, and you really feel responsible, right? Like we did it.
Yes.
You accomplished something,
right,
for sure. And how does that lore really come into the game, right? Like, yes, you have the twist. Yes, it's still a dungeon crawl, but is there something that was maybe your favorite part of the game, the video game, that you brought into this, or a favorite aspect?
So funny enough,
how easy is that without spoilers?
Oh, it's easy enough because
Okay.
actually my favorite aspect of Bloodborne is the lore, which is a little ironic because it's also the most well hidden part of the
Right.
video game. Because
Right.
you can play through the entire game and I'm just killing a bunch of monsters and just killing more monsters after this. But if you take the time to actually find the lore, which the game doesn't hand you, you've got to go and find in notes and backstories and things like that, then it's really deep, rich, and rewarding. And that's one of the things we've implemented here because we have, okay, you're going to go into a campaign with very basic information. Okay, go kill these scourge beasts that are infesting this area.
Right.
But you have submissions and subquests here that are going to reveal actually why you're doing this, what's going on, what's the cause of this. But you're going to have to seek out and find those things on your own. And you're not going to be able to do it all in one playthrough. So
That's right.
to get the full scope of the story, you're going to play through a campaign multiple times, and each time find little different nuggets of information here, like, oh, this is why this is happening, or this led to this result here.
Yeah, and I love the atmosphere, right? I'm almost not doing it justice to describe it this way, but it's so like gloomy, neo-Gothic and oppressive, and you feel like they did a really good job of walking that tightrope of just oppressing you from the moment you start playing, but never feel like it's absolutely unwinnable. You'll play it, and I threw my controller against the wall at least once, right? But that was out of frustration, and I own that, right? I'm really not good at these. I was like, where's my block button?
I played through it enough to double my blood pressure medication.
Yeah, basically.
The doctor was not happy about that.
And one of the things I liked about it, I'm pretty lowbrow when it comes to video games. I love going out and just killing stuff. But the way that Bloodborne does it, they put you through these PTSD loops of like just dying and being frustrated and dying, being frustrated. And you know it is beatable. Other people have beaten it. You know you can beat it. And taking that and putting that in this game I think that's our best, in my opinion, is our best accomplishment.
Cool. And
We'll tell you how.
and this is a game that has, because we are, of course, formerly Cool Mini or not, a lot of minis. So there's a lot of very, would you call them monsters? And in-depth monsters in the game. Can we show some of those to the lovely people here?
We can show the real monsters.
We got to do we got to do the slow reveal, right?
Oh,
All right.
I was going to show, the real monster.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Go for it. Show 100.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these, just to they don't come
Sorry,
pre-painted in the game. We're going to show you some pre-painted ones painted by Big Child Studios, who are amazing. Well, it's nice for me, but let's put, here you go. Here's the iconic hunter, right? Mr. Saw Cleaver himself. Hello. Hello. Hello.
It might only focus on the table. Okay, cool.
And
Show some of the bigger enemies here.
one at a time. Oh, here's what I call this. I call this. How do I paint this? But for those of you familiar, right, like I love the translation.
Yeah, and there's the Bloodstar Beast, because even when you picked up the miniature, there's giving me some PTSD of.
That well, when I was talking about the loop,
Yeah.
there you go.
We can tease some more later too.
Okay, all right, all right.
We can just make it like a slow trickle as we
Just
kind
one
of
more,
progress.
one more. Hello.
One more, okay. As we
There's the
progress
Huntsman's
through the
minion.
live stream.
Hunter Mob.
I have a question from
Sorry,
uh,
Yeah.
Dharma
I can't stop
Ramos.
looking at him.
Thank you for chiming in. Do you have to start the campaign over every time you fail?
Yep.
Oh yeah, so yep, it's each campaign is a 3-act, 3 chapters, and if you fail one of those chapters, you are back to square one. Now, it's important to note though that each of the campaigns is not some multi-week drawn out like D&D style like year-long thing. Each of the campaigns you can play through in a 1-day session or like a 2-day session of a couple hours each. So this is not
2 day because you're not going to do it the first time.
yeah, well, yeah, you're not going to win the first time, but definitely not something like we're in week 8 and then we lost.
Right.
Progress reset.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that, what is one of the key elements of this game? Like it is a campaign game, right? Right through the bones of this design, everything about it is campaign and progression. But it is because you have to look, like some of the cool tension is you have to look beyond the first game and into the next game. But because it's only a 3-act game, you're even though yes you're going to die and you're going to lose and then have to be kicked back to the start. You are not going to have too much pain. And sometimes because of the way that the story-based decisions go, you might actually want to try some new things and experiment with a new story tree. And I got ahead of us.
It's okay. It's okay to get ahead. So the next question is from JRob0418. He asks, what enemy or boss did you find most challenging to transition from the video game to the board game?
That's you. I think you designed all the bosses.
Most challenging one. That's a good question. I think that actually, well, I know my favorite one was very easily enough Father Gascoigne here, because he is viewed in the video game as a lot of the kind of the barrier, kind of the gatekeeper about the get good mentality.
Right.
You can kind of just kind of hammer your way through the game up until you reach him, and now all of a sudden, surprise, you have to use some strategy and tactics. Otherwise, he's just going to completely curb stomp you. So he's the gatekeeper of now. Do you understand the mechanics of the game to progress past this point? Because before then, you could again just kind of go and bludgeon things to death. He wasn't the most challenging to design, but he was the most fun because of that aspect. As far as challenging, I would actually say maybe like Vicar Amelia, because
Oh, really?
it's because you get so familiar with these guys. They're each in.
Sure.
Actually, I'm going to change that.
Good.
I'll change it.
Well, let's see if we have the same favorite.
For me, it was actually the most challenging design was the Cleric Beast.
Okay.
The first boss you technically come across.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is the first boss to me, and I say this with all due respect to, what he is, he's the easiest one to beat because he's just this big rampaging monster.
Right.
All the other bosses have that kind of unique thing about them, whereas he's just a big brute guy that jumps around a lot.
Well, and in this game, he sets the tone, right?
Yeah.
He's like, he tells you in this game, this is what bosses do in this game, right? So, like, you get that really cool transition from we're fighting a bunch of monsters to we're actually fighting the Cleric Beast, and no spoilers, but you do feel that palpable change of, like, the game just changes all around him, which I think is really cool.
I remember when we were initially talking, and you were talking about when you first came across him and everything, and how how that little experience, which I think everyone has that. Like, yeah, yep. Everyone has that. Like, oh, okay, this is how it's going to be.
Awesome. And what is the experience like working on a game this size with a license involved, right? So, what is it like working with the existing IP and just how long has this been in the works?
Well, what's interesting is that both Michael and I have individually worked on some of the biggest, most complex, ambitious games we've done, right? I mean, between us, we did like Blood Rage, Rum and Bones, Rising Sun, Wrath of Kings, Song of Ice and Fire. Like, so we're no strangers to ambition. So we agreed right at the outset. We're like, you know what? Let's make this hard for us, right? Like, let's go for something that's ambitious enough to scare the pants off of us, and because we know, like, the Bloodborne has a really like they have a really passionate fan base, and the game itself is so excellent that we got to hold ourselves up to that standard. So we had to do epic with this is my marketing speak, but we got to do epic with the 5-minute teach, right? It still has to be easy to learn. But once you get in, it's impossible to play well, at least at the very beginning. How long were we on this?
You know, every time I
don't
think
remember.
about when we started, I keep remembering, oh wait, that's not when we started. That was like, because I keep thinking of all the different, even just going
All
through
the
the files
restarts, right?
with
Yep.
the version histories and everything.
Right.
And it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, and I forgot we did that one. Oh yeah, and we used to do that. Man, that was terrible.
Right.
And just keep reverting back.
I mean, it was over a year at least.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Keep in mind, Eric, we've known each other a long time, and it just keeps getting longer.
Yeah. Well, so the idea for like what a Bloodborne board game could be goes years and years back, but it's to be frank, I didn't have any great ideas for what a Bloodborne board game could be after I worked on the card game, so it's kind of just trailed off and worked on other things. And it wasn't until talking with Michael that was like, do you think we can do a big box game? And then I think it was one brainstorm evening where you kind of figure out the vision.
We were sitting in the hotel lobby area at 2:30 in the morning because of
Last year here.
no
Yeah.
year before. You know, time is relative. So
It's either last
at
year or the year before.
at some point in the past.
Right. Yeah, I remember the hotel room.
Yeah, and yeah, because that's when we started like hammering things out. Because yeah, okay, that's the filter of nostalgia and time going by.
Back in
is
the old
just,
days, I was wearing an onion on my belt because that was the style at the time. Yeah.
Yep, so give me 5 Bs for a nickel.
It's been in the works for a while, but of course, like when it wasn't like we worked on it in bursts, right? We didn't work on it for like 2 years consecutively. We did a lot of design, let it rest, put it aside, came back, looked at it, said, ugh, hate this, right? Like, we'll take this little part that works and move on.
Who thought this was a good idea?
Right. Some of it survived though. Some of the vision survived right from the very beginning. Like we knew we wanted to do deck building as the core spoiler alert.
No dice.
As the core mechanic, like progressive deck building that you get to keep from game to game. I knew that survived since the beginning. We want to have discoverable tiles from the very beginning, and obviously miniatures, right?
I guess kind of a few miniatures.
And it's funny. The miniatures, like, because these things take so long to produce, right? To sculpt, especially with approvals from with Sony, right? They're very protective of their brand. So we started on miniatures a long time ago, and I remember there were points where we were looking at the miniatures, going, "Man, the game's got to be as good as that, right?" So nope, scrap, do it again. It's amazing how much of an inspiration that can be too.
Cool. And since you touched on mechanics, let's go into that a little bit deeper. What are the mechanics that really make this game and bring it together?
Want to do the 5-minute teach?
I suppose we can run through that.
I suppose.
What we got.
So we have some of the components here. This for this prototype are outdated enough that we can't really show it. So we can't really show you the whole thing.
And some were straight missing from our box.
Yeah, that's not on me, dude. That's on you.
You're going to be using some of the power of imagination.
So we don't want to. I mean, we can. Everything we're going to show is available on the Kickstarter video that we did. We might go a little bit deeper. This, of course, I took it out. Oh, we don't have it.
Strike one.
Strike one. So you start somewhere. There's a starting tile which we don't have here, and we apologize that this prototype was used for other events. Imagine there's a lantern here. I don't see it. So,
Here's a lantern.
yes. That's me. Can we spell one more
Yeah.
miniature? One
Leak,
more.
leak a few more.
This is actually my favorite one.
Yeah,
Just-
I agree. We are in agreement with that. Okay. Sorry, we're being directed. So, the goal of any individual game, you'll open up a card from the Long Hunt. Say this is the first campaign. You'll open that up and you'll put it next to your giant dashboard, which we do not have. And you start off not knowing the entirety of the mission that you have to complete. But the goal of the game is you must complete the mission and have enough insight in order to make it to the next part of the campaign. Yes. Insight is the for those of you who play the video game. It's in this game the current insight is the currency, the knowledge that you gain that will allow you to even get close to finishing the final boss of
the knowledge of things that you should not know.
But you know them anyway, paradoxically. So when you start with the Long Hunt, it will tell you the Long Hunt will tell you which tiles. So there are more tiles than you need to start. So it'll tell you which tiles that you have to set up for this game, what your starting tile is, which enemies that you're going to use. Right. So in this case, you're going to use the Hunter Mob and the Scourge Beast. You'll take all the Hunter Mobs out. You'll take the Scourge Beast out. Those are the two enemies that we have for this game. You'll take their enemy cards. You put them on the side. And if there are any special rules cards, which for the Long Hunt are the Enraged rules, you turn it over, and it tells you, it gives you the triggers for the next, in order to open up the next campaign card. So all you know is what you have to do right now. So in this particular, in the case of the Long Hunt, the first thing you have to do is you have to interact with the occupied house.
These are going to be your little side insight missions that'll, if you go and complete these, this is how you're going to gain insight to progress in your campaign. But now which one of these you do, if you do them, that's up to you. But these are going to give you your triggers. So you're going to come into the game knowing, okay, well, there's Scourge Beasts that are, like in this one here, there's Scourge Beasts that are infesting the streets of Central Yarnum. You need to go fix that problem. Okay, how do you do that? Well, you have your primary hunt mission here that's going to be your main story, but then you have your insight missions that are going to be, if you do these, secondary ones, you'll actually figure out what's going on and how to better fight the main threats that are happening. Right. And all they're going to tell you are, these are places that might be of interest to you. You're going to have to go there, and when you do that, complete those triggers, you'll unlock your campaign cards here, which are going to progress the storyline for those. So, not to give any spoilers here or whatnot, but so the first one here would be interact on the occupied house. So you go there, you interact via the actions in the game, and you'll find someone or something in the house there that will lead you on another storyline off to the side. Hello, weary traveler, I need you to go do this, or
that is exactly what they say too.
Yes, exactly. I took an arrow to the shoulder.
The core of the game, we said, is deck building. So each hunter is going to start with a core deck of 10 cards, which represent their stats.
12.
So, 12. Boom, this.
Boom.
Boom, boom. So, these are old.
Yeah. So.
These are old. So, the four, there are 3 copies each of the 4 basic stats in the game, right? And the cards that you have, you're going to draw 3 of them at the beginning of any given round, and those cards represent every action that you want to do. Anything that you want to do, you must discard a card to do it. And it will tell you here on your handy play reference cards what your actions are. So you can discard a card to move. You can move off of the board and discover a new tile, which you'll draw a new tile and then connect it in any way that you are allowed to connect. You can attack a monster that is there. We'll get to that in a moment. You can escape to the Hunter's Dream. So in Bloodborne, the Hunter's Dream is it's where you go, well, for 2 reasons. Either purposely to trade in blood echoes that you've gotten from monsters in order to get upgrades, or you get to go there involuntarily when you are killed. The game measures the number of times you go to the Hunter's Dream for any reason on a hunt track, which there it is.
Prototype.
Every time any player goes to the Hunter's Dream for any reason, you will advance the hunt track, and at the end of every round, you'll advance the hunt track. If you ever get here, campaign's over. You're done. If you finish your mission and get enough insight, you can end the game and get out. In addition, anytime you hit one of these spaces, you will actually reset the board. So for those of you who played Bloodborne, right, every time you die, the whole board resets and all the monsters respawn. That's crazy. Um, in this, it's not exactly the same, but it's close, right? It's not every single time you go the 100 stream. It's every X number of times, but you can see it ahead of time. You can plan for it.
Most of the time, you're like, oh, just don't die, and
Right.
trigger that.
Well, then you do, and
Yeah.
then you're dead, right?
That's actually one of my favorite elements of this is talking about scaling of players, which, by the way, 1 to 4 players, so you can play solo. But this does change the dynamics of when you're playing with yourself or 1 player versus 4 players.
That's right.
Is how the resource management comes, because the hunt track advances anytime someone goes back to the dream, whether they die or they do it voluntarily to get upgrades. So if you're playing by yourself, you have a lot more, okay, I've got flexibility that I can go back much more often because I'm the only one that has to keep track of this. And yes, the round is
The
going
round
up.
ends every turn,
but
right?
every time I take a turn, it's going up by 1. Versus if we have 4 players, okay, now it's a resource management here because I want to go back to the dream and upgrade, but so does he. But now it's going to increase it by 2. So it changes the dynamics of how you're playing the game, because time is your most important resource in here, because death doesn't really mean a whole lot. But that's one of my favorite mechanics that we kind of discovered as we were just playing the game.
Right.
Was that dichotomy of how the player scaling changes the resource management kind of aspect of things. That was one of those things we didn't plan and just discovered.
We talk about that all the time when we're doing a design, right? Like, oh, how is this going to scale for a number of players, especially in a cooperative game? By the way, did we mention this is a cooperative game?
Oh yeah,
We
full
did.
co-op, by
I
the
was
way.
just about to ask
This is a
that
cooperative
question.
game. You win or lose together.
Fully co-op, partial
Fully
co-op.
co-op, 100% co-op.
There's 100% co-op. We did in the Kickstarter our Chalice Dungeon, which is kind of the one-shot kind of game mode that we made that does have PvP rules to play in there. So if you just want to wreck each other, you can. But the primary game is campaign full co-op. So for better or for worse, your success and failure is determined by you and your teammates as a group.
So you know who to blame when somebody dies.
Everyone
Yeah,
else.
somebody else.
Someone
That's
else.
exactly right. That's exactly right. And the right, one of the things that we were so happy about is like very often you have to put rules patches on something to scale for multiplayers. We just tried not doing it, and it played out and it works all 4 players. So there are no significant rules changes.
That was, I think, like the biggest wait, really kind of moment.
Yep.
Was because originally we thought we were going to have to make a variable like track here based on the number of players, and then we didn't, and it was like, oh,
Nope.
that's
It
a
works.
pleasant surprise. Sometimes things just work out.
Right. It feels different. Like there's a different feel when you're playing solo, where you're playing with 4 players, and exactly you end up having to have those negotiation moments where because every upgrade that you make, which we didn't talk about, we'll talk about that in a moment. But every upgrade that you make is it permanently affects you, permanently affects your deck for the rest of the campaign. So of course everybody wants to get stronger. Everybody wants to get better cards. You need it in order to beat the final boss. If there's 4 players that all want upgrades, you end up feeling like you've got to push yourself to stay alive a little bit longer and make fewer trips out to the hunter stream and get as many upgrades as you can.
Oh, and I suppose it also is important to note
To
that
talk
we
about-
didn't, because when you involuntarily die, you lose all your accumulated blood echoes.
Right.
And this was a minor change from the game where you can go back and repick them up.
Right.
We tried doing that, but it
was too fiddly.
Yeah, and the tension that's there of like, okay, I need to go back because I'm sitting here at 1 health and 3 blood echoes.
Right.
I need to do this. Well, if I do this, it's going to cause a respawn here. So come on, guys, let me do it. And you've got to have that co-op negotiation. Sorry, it shouldn't be negotiation. Group discussion.
No, it's negotiation. At least in our group it is. So for those of you who don't know Bloodborne, just to get us up to speed. So one of the blood echoes are one of the primary resources of the game, aside from insight. So whenever you kill a monster, you'll get usually 1 blood echo. You just take the blood echo and you put it on your sheet. You use blood echoes when you voluntarily go to the hunter's dream to upgrade cards that are in your deck from an upgrade deck, which have better versions of each of your stats. So that you will get, you'll either get to get one or more, depending on how many blood echoes you have when you get in there. So
And we can call it what is. I mean, blood echoes are basically experience for,
Right. Yeah. If you're not familiar with blood, yeah, it's experience or gold or whatever you want it, if you want to go shopping for cards, right? But the key tension, which I really love, is that like the optimal way to play is to hold on to them as long as you can, so you can get 3 upgrades in 1 shot. But of course, that the longer you wait, the monsters are magnetically attracted to you, and they're going to follow you at the end of every round, and
World's
sometimes
kinda
by
dangerous.
surprise. It's kind of dangerous, and you don't have a lot of hit points. and there are a fair number of monsters that can just kill you. You
Fairly.
die, you lose.
Fairly, though.
Fairly. You lose everything, and it's gone. Then you go the Hunter's Dream without anything. And that happens.
And that's the basic gist of the gameplay without giving away too much, because we can sit here and talk all day long, but I'm sure we want some more questions out here.
Sure. Well, I'm
Well,
sure
the-
some of them are going to cover.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to ask.
And plus, all the
Well-
information's on the Kickstarter page as well for anyone that wants to check that out, and
That's
in depth with the rulebook, work in progress, and all that.
That's right.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so what ways do we get to grow and build the hunters as we progress?
Okay, back to explaining.
Sorry, that was.
It's all right. No
No,
worries.
it's good.
So it's the deck, right? So your deck is always going to be 12 cards for the entire game. So when you go to the Hunter's Dream and you spend your Blood Echoes and you get a better version of a card, you replace one of the cards in your hand or discard pile. You can just replace it and make a better version. Now the cool thing is you don't have to replace stat for stat. I'm kind of hiding the cards because these are old versions. We don't want to see our ugly prototype. You don't have to replace the same stat card with the same stat. You can actually choose to specialize. So you can go like, oh, you start with 3 endurance, 3 vitality cards. Maybe I decide I don't want any vitality. Forget that. I want to go all strength and just go for as much
Berserker Rage.
as much damage as I can in one. So I'm just going to get better strength cards and get rid of my vitality cards. But then I'm going to lose all of the benefits that vitality gives me. But my strength is amazing, plus these 3 extra cards.
So you can start specializing as a group, or just everyone just goes full circle, or I'm gonna.
I don't recommend that.
Just kill them before they kill you. I mean, come on.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about why that doesn't work later.
I'm sure you guys play super well as co-op, right? After working together for so long.
We lose a lot of games.
I don't remember the last time I won, actually.
Well, if you plan things better, we would win more.
Well, there you go. So all of the changes that you make to your deck, remember that your deck is always 12 cards. So one of the we're very well versed in deck building games, and if for those of you who are, we want to make sure that people aren't going to spend a lot of time doing the math and like having doing the card counting. Like, oh, if I put a card in my deck, that actually dilutes my deck a little bit. Like, it's always 12 cards. Your deck is objectively better. You don't have to worry about that. You just worry about what cards and combos you want to focus on, and you get to keep that from game to game in the campaign. But of course, once you lose the campaign, whoops, back to the start. Put those back in the upgrade deck. Start over.
And it was also important that each of those upgrades changes a full dynamic of how things work. So when you get even a single upgrade card, because you're not going to upgrade your full deck in like the first chapter of the game. This is throughout the campaign.
Right.
But each one of those 12 cards that you replace is going to have a dynamic impact on things. Like each one of those cards, you're going to look and go, like, man, I really, really want that one, and this is going to change fundamentally like how I do things and give me some really cool effect right here. So even though it's, like, oh, it's only 12 cards, I'm used to making a custom 60 card deck. Like, no, we're going quality over quantity here. Everything that you change is going to have a dynamic, deep effect on things.
That's right. And we could talk forever about like what the cards actually do and how they combine with your hunter weapons to create cool attacks. But as Michael said, we have a wealth of information.
Secrets.
Well, we also have a wealth of information.
yeah.
Like, you can go onto our Kickstarter page and you can learn the whole game. Like, the whole rule book's up.
Yep. All right. Any questions from the audience?
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Over here on the right. Yes. Yes.
Played through the game entirely, like each weapon, like what are your all's favorite weapons to the video game, and does it change to the board game?
So the question from the audience is, you mentioned playing the game multiple times with different weapons. Do you have a favorite weapon from the video game, and is it different in the board game?
So for me personally, and anyone who is familiar with Bloodborne almost is going to make fun of this, because actually going back to my favorite miniature here, one of the reasons is because they're also using Ludwig's Holy Blade, which on the online community is made fun of because it's basically like the noob weapon that, oh yeah, it's just the big thing that hits things, and it's one of the safer weapons to play versus one of the trickier weapons to actually play through. So it's basically kind of looked down on as, the elite snobs of the online Bloodborne community are like, oh, please. But hey.
Well, I mean, I like the saw cleaver. Sorry, it's just so I'm aesthetics, right? For me, aesthetics are really, really important, and
That should
especially
be in front of him.
well, exactly right.
Yeah.
Does it actually?
does.
Oh my God, it does. Amazing. So when it ow.
Oh yeah, it's for crowd control, so it's functional.
Nice. So like, I mean, when I play it, I'm how the character looks is really important to me. Like, you're staring at that character all the time, right? So like, I just love the saw blade, and I actually, personally, I enjoy how the saw blade plays in game. Not partially, that's bias, right? Um, the thing is, one of the things that we do in this game is we make sure that the weapons give you an overarching ability, and it's very simple, but it's like an overarching ability that templates over your cards. But a big part of the game is the individual attacks and how you combine the cards in your deck with the attacks that you use. So that you can customize your way into your favorite play style almost agnostically.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. I think we had one over here on the left, and then we'll get to you.
Sure. You guys mentioned that Sony had a lot of input on how the miniatures were made. Do they have any other input on any other like parts of the game?
Question from the audience is Sony, you mentioned Sony has a lot of input on the miniatures. Do they have input on any other aspects of the game?
I mean, not really, actually. So the interesting thing is, especially with this game, is this game sort of piggybacked off of the card game, which was so successful, and they were so happy with it. They were like, "We trust you guys. Go." I don't recall. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think about I mean, we got a lot of feedback that's because they are very protective of their brand. So we want to make sure that our nomenclature is correct, that the way the game jargon that we use is completely correct. But we kind of got that anyway. I think we were corrected twice. I remember being corrected twice.
Yeah, we had
That's
we had the full source book and everything. Then it's like, okay, these are the official names for things. These are the just all the technicals and officials. That is all of course protected because that's what it needs to be and everything. But
Right.
Other than that, it's yeah, it was pretty easy going on that aspect. Just making sure all the things that should be what they are what they are. If that made sense. Yeah,
Right.
close enough.
Well, I mean, we were super respectful to the property, right? And I think they respected that. We were especially with the card game, we were so faithful to the IP that they expected the same from us here, and I think / hope we delivered.
All right, over here on the right.
So you touched on the scaling as far as player count goes. When it's one player, do you actually have to have more cards, or how does that work?
Question from the audience is on scaling, specifically with regards to the one-player version. How does that work?
No, so specifically what scales with the player count is map size and also some of the variables for the objectives, but that's the only thing that changes. So, the monsters are what they are, but your missions might become a little bit harder to compensate that there needs to be more players, so you might have to gather more resources, and again, the map size also changes based on the amount of players as well. But other than that, the core game mechanics don't change at all. So like enemies are what they are when you come across them. Missions are going to be what they are. It's not like you're going to have one that's, oh, this mission's only for 3+ players. It just might be the amount of stuff that you need to accomplish for that mission might have a variable based on the amount of players. But otherwise, it should be, there's no 2 sets of rules or 3 sets of rules like based on player count or anything. It's always the same thing, just with some variables that have changed.
Right, and that's printed. Like you don't have to manipulate.
Right.
You don't do any manipulations during the game. It's just smooth.
Beautiful, beautiful. Question over here in the back.
Do you have any plans for some of the bosses that were left out from the Kickstarter campaign and the Old Hunters DLC?
Do you have any plans with regards to the boxes that were left out of the Kickstarter campaign?
Now I'm going to jump on that one just because I like this answer. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to police you.
Okay. That would fall under spoilers territory, and I notoriously hate spoilers. That's all I'll say on that. So you can redact and
All
police
right. Well,
there.
nope. I was going to say yes, and that's all you're going to get from us.
Ooh, well there you go. That was a lot more than we had before. All right, any other questions? Over here on the left,
I'm a controller thrower as well. I've tried to play Bloodborne. As I get older, it's more and more difficult for me to control video games.
Where's the blood button?
How difficult is difficult? Are we going to get stuck? Are we going to have to look online for advice and get information as to which dice should I use? What's the mechanics of dealing with a problem? And is each experience every time you play very different? So you don't really have that element of just getting frustrated and not being able to progress further.
Sure.
So
So
question
that's 2
from
questions, I think.
yeah,
No
question from
worries,
the
no,
audience
we're good.
who is a self-professed game controller thrower, which I like. I'm all about that.
I'm getting the T-shirt.
So it's essentially a two-part question of actually I'm gonna let you take
Sure.
that
So
question 'cause I think you-
we'll rephrase it to because it is two questions, and they're both really good questions. So we'll attack both separately. So one is the game so difficult? Like, is the game difficult in a way that you'll have to refer to like external sources, online sources, to figure out how to beat it? And this your second question is, if I understand it right, your second question is, have we made the game? Is the game accessible to players of many different skill levels? Would that be a good way to put it? The first one, I'll take the first one if you don't mind. The first one is So I understand your frustration, 100%. I am your frustration. I'm not a good Twitch player at all, right? I enjoy it, but I'm not good at it. This game, is not a kinesthetics experience like the video games are. So you don't. It acts as a very different set of skills. So if you're especially if you're an experienced tabletop player and you have a chance to see if you understand sort of the dynamics of how deck building, combo building, and planning works, I mean, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to die, right? You're going to die and you're going to start over. But the consequences for dying and starting over on this probably won't make you throw a controller. If so, it's a pretty big controller. I don't think you. I mean. When I at story-based games, when I do badly at them, I do look online for other hints at how to play, and it's actually part of the enjoyment for me. But I don't think you need to do it in order to play the game. You can do it with repetition, I believe, with repetition and learning. The game is built on that, right? You throw yourself against the Huntsman's minion, you die. Can we see the Huntsman's minion? He's so cool.
Yeah. Go
Uh,
for it.
Nope.
No.
You throw yourself against the
Oh, 'cause we
Huntsman's
don't have
minion, you
it.
can't see. You die.
Sorry.
You do it again. But you learn something every time you do it. And that's one of the things I love about this game, right? That's that for all the negative reinforcement you get, you do learn something, and that's critical to the success of the game. How did we scale the actual difficulty of the game?
So when you're coming across different enemies that's one of the things we didn't really cover too much as we were doing our general overview here.
Right, because it's a deep question, right?
Right. Enemies do have predictable behavior, and that's an element of the video game we translated over. Is that especially here with, they have predictable behavior. So they've got a basic attack and a special attack. Most enemies, so you know that they're usually going to be doing one of these two things, and usually they're going to be doing their basic attack here, so you can plan around that. So. And bosses do function a little bit differently because they've got a special behavior deck that they work off of. But when you come across them and you learn that behavior, you know that these are predictable patterns that are going to be coming up. So if you're approaching the same problem the same way over and over again and dying over and over again, and it's like, man, I keep trying nothing different and nothing is changing, that's really something you should self-evaluate on there.
It's kind of on you, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the point, right? Like but that's part of the discovery of the game, right? Like I love the I call them the pilot decks, right? The pilot decks for the campaign and the AI, and they're all different. Like the pilot deck for the Long Hunt is different from the other campaigns. I don't remember how much we spoiled. So
Redacted spoiler.
Redacted spoiler. And every boss has their own deck, so you get that cool perpetual feeling of discovery. And unless you are like an absolute unless you're a supercomputer for memory, you're gonna forget from time to time, and you'll come back and get to relearn it. And the cool thing is, one of the cool things I really, really like, it's a little bit subtle, but the same monster, the exact same monster in a different campaign will behave differently for two reasons. We might design the attacks differently, and the pilot deck will be different as well. So you'll have to kind of reteach yourself how to defeat the exact same enemy.
It's like here we have the hunter mob from the Long Hunt, which on this side will have a axe swing and a rifle shot, but then his other version here, they're carrying the shield, so they might block your attacks instead, just bash you with them versus shooting you, because they're nice like that. They'll pick the way they're gonna send you to the dream. We're going to the farm. I mean dream.
Hope that answered your question.
All right. So we have time for a couple more questions, and then as we're answering questions, just feel free to trickle those out because we're getting towards the end.
Hello.
All right, over there in the back.
We've seen CMON do crossovers with other games. Will the Hunters crossover into something like Zombicide Black Plague?
No, sir.
Nope.
Easy question.
The question is about crossovers, and really the answer is it's not something we're currently looking into right now.
Oh, she gives the market answer. No, sir.
Yes,
Well, so if you beat the Long Hunt, the first campaign, why would you want to replay it once you've been successful? Are there elements to make it?
Oh, can we? Yeah, we can.
So, yes, you have narrative story elements that will change. Decisions can lead to different effects that happen.
Here, this is the campaign deck for the Long Hunt.
So actually, it's much bigger than that.
you have to put it down.
Oh,
Really won't see
But
it.
actually, this is something we covered in the Kickstarter when we did this is a hypothetical situation that we made up to show examples of branching paths. So this is actually something we can semi-spoil because it doesn't exist, unless it does. That might be a subterfuge, ruse, and everything. But one of the examples was, so you come across, a young girl and you rescue her from a frenzied hunter mob who's yelling beast and going to kill her and everything, and so you save her. And then your options after you've done that is to, you find out, oh, she actually might be infected. So your options are then strike her down on the spot because you're a hunter, or send her, send her off because you don't feel like striking down a young girl. In later chapters of that same campaign, you'll come across one of the safe spots in the city. And when you flip over that insight mission, it's going to reference the previous one you did that mission reward was Moment of Mercy or Hunter's Resolve. He goes okay, so we have the Moment of Mercy insight that we did, which is referencing the fact that we let that girl go. Okay, since you did that, when you open the door to the safe zone, that's where she eventually made her way and then transformed and has killed everyone inside. So that's changed a bit because now everyone's dead. Versus you chose to strike her down like a proper hunter should have. And everyone inside is alive and well because there wasn't some infected little girl that came in there and murdered everyone. So that has dynamically changed your kind of quest hub for that chapter and now changed your outcome there.
right.
So
I do want to be clear though, right? It's not so we talked about this sort of branching narrative, right? But it's not exactly about picking the right choice. It's about picking every choice you make is going to make the game play differently, and you might later on you might want to play and go, well, I really don't know how to say this without spoiling, so I'm going to piggyback off your example. I actually want this new quest hub, so that's exactly why I'm going to do it the next time I play. Or if you play and say, no, I didn't like how that played out at all, we are a very, very, very quick. A quick sort of glass cannon type party. We don't want that. We don't want to be surrounded by monsters. We want to go somewhere else. I want to try a different choice and see where that leads me. There's a myriad of choices every game you play, and the consequences in future games in that campaign, they sort of butterfly that.
And you never know what's going to create that butterfly effect. Sometimes quests are just done and they're done. But it's also important to know that you're never going to have enough time to do every single one of these insights. And
Right.
it's going to matter about what did you come across while you're out hunting, and then
for.
what did you choose to pursue? Because you might not have even come across that that little girl to begin with. So you might not have even experienced that the first time you played through the campaign.
That's
might
right.
have been some other terrible choice you had to make.
Terrible. Well, that's a dynamic I really like too. Is that I haven't seen really that often in games. Is that because it's a campaign, you can choose. We can voluntarily go, all right, you know what, we finished the mission, we meet our minimum criteria, but we might want to go, you know what, let's farm a little more insight. Let's do another mission. We got time. Let's do it.
We always have more
Right?
time.
Because you might want to leave yourself a buffer in the next game because you don't know how tough that's going to be. So let's stick around a little bit, just a little bit longer, just a little bit. Oh no,
Something
right?
bad has happened.
Because it's not. It looks like it's predictable, right? But you have to be super rad and not die. You have not die on your turn or on an enemy's turn, because then it's out of your control. And as soon as you hit this doesn't mean the game's over. This means the campaign's over. Ciao, right? So, as a
I want to jump in right quick, actually, for something that this hunt track is by per chapter. So this is not like the full campaign progresses on there, because that was actually something that on the Kickstarter some people were assuming.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right.
No. Right. Yeah. So every chapter it will reset to 1. Yes, of course. Sorry, when I say campaign's over, this is just
That doesn't mean the campaign's over because you lost, but that is tracked by individual chapter.
Yeah. You don't worry. You're not you're not stuck here forever in future games. But as a player who loves pushing his luck, right? I love just testing just how far we can pull it, and you notice how people get progressively more conservative the deeper you get into a campaign.
It's the failure spiral.
And this question isn't directly about the board game, but it comes from one Dark Sword Spyro, and he asks, will there be any more expansions for the card game?
Um, I know how to answer this. So, we at CMON are always thinking about cool new things to do for our games. But generally speaking, if it's not announced or anything like that, we can't really talk about it. But I can say, well, Bloodborne sells very well. We like it. We always have ideas, and that's all you're going to get from me.
Awesome. Question over
with
here.
the hunt track, can you undo some bad ideas? Can you sort of redeem yourself and can it go backwards the other way? Is there a
Is there a way to go back?
Yes.
Nuh-uh.
So you can only go forward.
Yeah.
So the pace increases, the tension increases.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can always choose not to die. I mean, like, like.
And the question was if you could go back on the hunt track.
It's real simple advice. Get good.
Right. No, it's important. It was an important design decision to make sure that it always goes forward. Because also we wanted to make sure that it's the timing mechanism of the game, right? So no matter what, there is no way to accidentally break the game and actually find some weird equilibrium where you can go forward and back. It's a big game. It has a lot of sprawling mechanics that we want to make sure that we can control to a degree. So the fact that it's always moving forward is just, it's a nice, you can put your mind at ease and you know that eventually we're screwed, right? You can opt,
An
but
inevitability.
the key is you can always just opt out, right? You can just say, you know what, let's not get too much insight here. Let's just opt out. As long as we hit the minimum bar, we're good. If you died, you're greedy.
And we have time for maybe one more question if there's one more floating out there. Here in the front.
This question about the box. Is there going to be a way to organize, if you win a campaign, is there going to be a way to organize the cards that you get to keep from one campaign to the next?
Well, so the campaigns are singly done. So if you finish the campaign, it's done. But I assume you're meaning individual chapters within the campaign. Yes, there are means to keep track of all of that. So you can definitely pack things away and then 3 months later, all right, where were we here? And there are going to be ways to track that in between games in the box.
Right. We can't be too specific right now because we're still in production phase of that.
That looked like a question. It's just Andrew stretching. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us here at CMON Expo and the folks overseas at UK Games Expo. I really appreciate everyone coming out, asking questions. I believe we have 3 more panels today. We have 3 more panels today. So again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for participating. Have a wonderful time at the show. And I will see you all soon.
Thank you, everyone. We got so.
Hello, everyone. So thanks so much for joining us here today, and thank you for all of your comments and questions and everything. We are going to be giving away prizes, so make sure to leave more comments in the chat here. And thanks for everybody over in the UK joining us today. We also have one more panel that we are doing today. It is the Song of Ice and Fire, and that is going to be around 4:30 our time, but there is an event listed on YouTube and on Facebook at the CMON Expo Facebook page, so you can check out the time there for your specific region, so you can figure that out. It's very helpful. Other than that, we will see you guys all here probably in a few hours.